And we are joined in studio now by Senator Jeremy England. Senator, how you doing today,
Doing good,
sir?
Dave. How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Hadn't talked to you in a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah,
I think it was by phone last time we talked.
Yeah, I think it was, actually.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
That's right.
I think it's a nice way to put it. Just before we get into the details of this, we've had a few really energetic sessions the last few years because of everything going on. How would you compare this year's session to the last, say, two?
Well, my first year was 2020, so it was COVID year right away. And I was just talking to John Polk about this, and I said, I'm kind of better prepared to take on these odd sessions because I don't know what a normal session looks like. And I said, John, for you, it's got to be, it's got to be a lot more difficult because you know how much crazier things are right now. So I would say for me, it feels like it's right on par.
It's just another day.
That's
yeah.
right. We're learning to think quickly on our feet. Those of us that came in 2020.
Well, if we ever go back to normal style sessions, you're going to doze off at your desk.
That's right. Right. I mean, it's going to seem a lot less fast paced on us.
I can think about worse things. I can come up with worse ideas.
Right. Yeah. Dozing off is not a bad thing. And if we can get caught sleeping up here, I'm sure a lot of people's pocketbooks will be a lot better. Right.
A lot of things to talk about, but before we get to any of those, let's talk about the big one. That's House Bill 833. Explain what this is for people that haven't been following it.
Yeah, glad to do that. And I'll tell you, I didn't know what House Bill 833 was 3.5 weeks ago, right? It just wasn't on our radar. And then all of a sudden it gets passed by the House, and I'm told, look, this is the most important bill for our auto dealers since ever. This is it. What 833 does is it prohibits a motor vehicle manufacturer or distributor from owning or operating a dealership here in Mississippi, or from applying for a dealer's license, or from it just limits them from being a new dealer. Now, there are very few exceptions to that. Like if you've got one here, you're grandfathered in. I think that applies to exactly one here, but there's not many exceptions to that. So if you manufacture a car and you're not currently, if you manufacture a car, you can't open a dealership and sell the cars you manufacture in Mississippi under this bill. Now,
I can see some positive and negative to this because this bill is aiming to change that, right?
It is, yeah. So the bill completely limits it. So apparently there's a so-called loophole, and I'm not sure if it's a loophole or not. But just to jump into it to help explain it better for the viewers and listeners, Tesla manufactures their vehicles. If Tesla wants to come to Mississippi and open a dealership, in other words, the manufacturer wants to open a dealership, if this bill passes, they can't do it. Same for Rivian. If Rivian wanted to come into Mississippi and open up a Rivian of Jackson dealership, if this bill passes, they can't do it. So it is a very prohibitive bill in its nature. And as you mentioned, there's good parts and there's bad parts. Look, our dealers don't like this. The dealers' concern is that you're going to have your legacy manufacturers come in and open, say, Ford of Jackson, right? Now, I haven't been told where they're doing that anywhere, so it's a problem. We often look at solutions looking for problems. I wonder if this is it. But the thing that strikes me about it, Dave, when I was approached about this, and I've done a lot of homework into it, the problem I have with it, this bill restricts a new sales model that several new companies have found, particularly these electric vehicle manufacturers, and that's a blossoming market. I mean, it's really coming into play. We see that they've got a different sales model, and we're telling them, look, we do things the old way in Mississippi. We're going to pass a bill and restrict you from doing that, and it just doesn't make me comfortable.
Well, and that makes sense. Now, you can understand the dealer's standpoint.
Absolutely,
the dealerships 100% because this is their livelihood. This is their business, and if you allow those those manufacturers rather, to come in and just sell them straight from the factory, as it were, that might be a level of competition they wouldn't be interested in having to go against, because I'm not sure that's a battle they could win.
Well, and that's right, and that's exactly what they're concerned with. My response to that is they've got franchise agreements. They've dealt with this, and I wouldn't want the government to get in the way of their franchise agreements, right? So if I wanted to go open, a dealership down on the coast in a town that already has a Ford dealership, I would be told, listen, you can't do that. There's a franchise agreement in place, so we're not going to let you can't go open that. So I would be restricted from doing that. So I think this, again, I think there's already solutions out there.
Now the question is, we just got one on the C Spire text line because this is a layered thing. You think it's fairly simple on face value, but it's really not. The question that we got said, this is why you can't buy an EV car, an electric car in Mississippi, because there's nobody to service it.
Well, that's right. Okay, so, and look, I'll say this on behalf of the folks that authored and are pushing the bill. They'll tell you you can open as many service centers as you want, right? But the response to that is, how many Ford service centers do you see that don't have a dealership right there? I mean, it's just not feasible for them to go open that. And look, if we pass this bill, looking at the statistics, okay, Mississippi is what is known right now as an open state. In other words, Tesla can come in currently right now and apply for a dealership license and sell their Teslas. There are 21 states plus Washington, D.C. that have open states, an open model to allow them to do that. There are 5 states that are trying to open up, right? They want to allow Tesla and these other EV manufacturers to come in and do it. There's one state in the United States that's trying to close their market, and that's Mississippi. And that, when I learned that really struck me, because Tennessee is open currently. Louisiana is looking at opening. And as you say, where are you going to go get your vehicle service? Well, if they're able to open a Memphis dealership with a service center or a dealership with a service center in New Orleans, that's where they're going to open it. That's where it makes more sense. So if you buy an EV in Jackson or in Tupelo, you're going to have a ways to go to get your car serviced. And we don't want to shut that down like that, in my opinion.
Hopefully you've got charging stations between here and there, because you're not going to make it on one battery.
That's right.
Which is part of the problem here. But is there a possibility for a middle ground here where we can alleviate some of this restrictiveness and moving backwards, if you will, and moving in the opposite direction from everybody else, and the very justifiable concerns from the dealerships? Is there a middle ground we can find?
I think there is, Dave. And look, I presented an amendment to this bill. It failed, by the way, last week. My amendment was to create a study committee on this and to let us step back and look at it. Again, I hadn't heard about this bill 3.5 weeks ago. There's a lot of questions around it. Let's let the laboratories of democracy work here and find a solution that works for everybody. Because, look, we don't want to shut Mississippi off to the economic development possibilities that would come with electric vehicle production. You know, back in the Obama administration, they tried to push consumers to EVs. Well, you can't push consumers. We all, as Republicans, we know that the market reacts to the consumers, and now consumers seem to be shifting to want EVs. I don't want to see us take a step backwards and lose out on the economic development that will come with these groups being here, or with just the economic freedom of being a consumer and being able to go test drive a vehicle rather than having to purchase one online and have it shipped to you. And then ship it right, say you buy a Rivian truck made in Indiana, by the way, which uses mostly United States manufactured parts. You buy one of those from Indiana, you get it shipped here, something's wrong or you need to have it serviced. Are you going to ship it back to Indiana? I mean, we're seeing a new market arise here, and I don't want us in Mississippi to tell them that we're going to restrict them right off the bat from being able to do what they want to do.
No, to me, it's kind of the opposite of opening up for growth.
Right. It is. And look, we're really big right now on cutting the red tape, on getting government out of the way, letting the market operate as it should, letting the free market operate. And this is a bill that takes a step backwards. And you ask about a middle ground. I think there is one. I think we need to study this. In my study committee that I had, and it wasn't a perfect bill, I'll say that, because there's three parties here, Dave. You've got your new electronic vehicle manufacturers, you've got your automobile dealers, but you've also got your manufacturers. And we need them to be represented, all three of those to be represented on this study committee, and take a look at it and see what these other states are doing, like Georgia and Utah and Connecticut's trying to open up right now, and New York. We're going to see this become the new market And we want them to be here in Mississippi just like they're going to be everywhere else. Or we're going to have to go, we're going to have to go to Memphis or New Orleans and bring our business there, have Mississippians bring their business outside the state.
And I think you'll agree with this statement. Usually with any issue, the truth is somewhere in the middle.
It is.
It just about always falls somewhere in between the two extremes of the argument. Open it up to everybody. Well, no, don't let anybody in. Now, somewhere in the middle, I think, is the sweet spot there.
I think that's correct. That's absolutely right. And we can find that. If we can find a bill that nobody's 100% happy on, but everybody's maybe 80% happy on, we've done our job. And we're supposed to be deliberative and slow moving. I think this is a bill that we need to just take a step back, give it a year. We'll be back next January. Let's look at it then.
You could always just, strike everything in the House bill and write your own. I hear that's done at times.
That seems to be a popular move this year.
Yeah, it really does. We've got Senator Jeremy England in studio with us. We'll continue with him in the Element Wealth Studios on Middays coming up next. So, Senator Brandon Presley, Jeremy England rather looked at the wrong thing on here. I transferred you over to the Public Service Commission.
I had to look down and make sure I was in the right seat.
Check your ID. Can I see your card, sir?
That's right.
Senator Jeremy England with us. And I had to throw that little dig in right before the break because the back and forth on the tax relief situation has been going on, well, since the session came into session, I think. And is there any sign of this being resolved anytime soon?
Well, I'll tell you, I have seen some movement. How far it's a movement, I don't know. If this is a mediation, it's going to be a long one, right? And we're negotiating back and forth. I think the bill that Senator Harkins mentioned yesterday comes a long way from our end of the hall to get us somewhere this year. But look, I've said all along when I sat here with Gerard 2 years ago, and this was just kind of becoming the hot topic. I said, look, this is a 4, maybe 5 year process because we're changing our tax system. We're changing it, and we've got to still keep in mind that we have to be able to operate as a government. We have to make sure we're not. I know we want to take drastic actions, but my questions are: is now the time? And if we pull this string, what strings are we not pulling that are gonna surface and maybe be a big issue for us later on? You
always have to think even harder about the things that you do during the good times because the bad times could pop back up at any moment.
They could.
And then you're stuck with what you've got, and then you've got a bigger problem than you would have had otherwise.
That's right. And I know there's a big debate on whether we're looking at one-time money right now. And I've heard a lot of folks in the House say, look, this isn't one-time money. This is, we don't even have ARPA in the system yet. But, Dave, I remember going to Bass Pro last year when the federal government's just lining everybody's pockets and you couldn't find a kayak or a gun or go find a TV. So our sales revenue has been inflated, okay, and we can't ignore that. Now we've also made under Speaker Gunn and Governor Tate Reeves when he was Lieutenant Governor then, they made a lot of strides, like the 2016 tax cut. So we probably are seeing some growth because of the good conservative moves that they've made. But they did so gradually, and I want to wait and let's see where we are, I think, and let's keep being fiscally responsible with these gradual moves that we're making in the way that we're cutting taxes.
Talking about cutting taxes, being fiscally responsible, and seeing how things go, one of the big topics today, one of the big conversations is Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann yesterday bringing up the concept of eliminating the gas tax for 6 months in Mississippi. What do you think about that?
Look, yesterday was the first I heard about that. So there's, I've got a lot of thoughts that I'm still digesting on that one. But I'll tell you my initial thought sitting here right now is this is a good idea. It's a good idea for people right now that are being hurt by inflation and being hurt by gas prices increasing. It kind of gives an inflationary it allows people to deal with inflation right now and deal with these high gas prices. I'll tell you now, you and I talked about this a minute ago. Another thing I like about this is it gives us 6 months to test the theory of if we cut taxes on one end, say if we cut taxes outside at the pump, is that going to lead to an increase in revenue with people going inside and shopping in the stores and sending that right back through in sales tax revenue? So, it's a 6 month probationary period that we can look at, and if it does that, we can say, hey, let's what else can we cut and do that? And I'm a big fan of what President Calvin Coolidge did back. I've done a lot of research on that, and that was one thing he did. Matter of fact, he was worried about cutting taxes to the point to where revenue increased so much that government grew. He didn't want government to grow. Okay, so it's a model that's been tested, and this will give us a 6-month time period to do it. And look, Mississippians will be all the better for it, and folks traveling through our state are going to stop here to get gas because we're giving them relief for a 6-month time period.
And you can ask anybody, any economic development person, any person in municipal government, if you get people to stop for gas, they're not just buying gas.
That's right. And you know what? They might go in and buy a lottery ticket, and it goes right back to our roads. And we've got a very good lottery system going right now. We're generating a lot more money than I think we all thought we would. So that 6-month period is going to give us a lot to look at, but it's going to help your average Mississippian. It's going to help my folks in Van Cleaver and East Central that drive to Biloxi or Gulfport to go to work every morning. It's going to help them tremendously for at least 6 months right now when they need it a lot while gas prices are going up.
What do you think the odds are of it happening? You're way out on the end of the limb here,
listen,
Senator.
I know. See, I don't even. I don't buy lottery tickets because I don't. I'm not a big gambler. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I encourage everybody else to if they need to. But look, I don't know. I think we've got a Beaver Dam in front of us that's called the tax plan, right, from both sides. We've got a lot of bills that are gathering up behind it. This is important. It's important for Mississippi. It's important for Mississippians. Whether this gas, like I said, I just heard about this yesterday. I know there's a lot of thought that's been into it. I think it would be helpful. I'm not going to give it better than 50-50 right now.
That's probably the safe bet to make.
Right.
I would think. I do have to ask, when you say Beaver Dam, do you mean there's a blockage in the path of progress? Or are you referencing the sheer number of trees that have been cut down and turned into paper for this?
Oh, my goodness. Look, we're helping the forestry industry out tremendously in the state capitol building right now with the tax plans and the large bills that are coming through. But look, the tax bill is obviously very important to both ends of the hall. It's taken a lot of the oxygen away from other things. 833. I'm not sure if any of your listeners had heard about it until I came on here today. But once we get the tax bill out of the way, you're going to see a lot more things start to flow. If we don't get the tax bill out of the way, I'm not sure what we're going to see. We might need some tannerite, which would make for a good YouTube video, I guess.
Hey, you could probably sell tickets to it and raise some revenue.
Right. Look, anytime we can do that. Anytime we can let the consumers come in and help us raise revenue rather than us just generating it, that's all the better.
Anything else that's still alive, that's not dead yet, that is sticking out to you?
Well, there's a lot that's still alive that probably should be dead. But look, I have a bill that the House put a reverse repealer in that I'm going to be working on. I've worked on it for last 2 years, and it's made it further through the process than it ever has this year. It's a bill that will create a registry for people who have stolen from the state. It's a public fund offender registry. If you take from your municipality or the state or a state agency, in other words, if you embezzle money, you're going to be put on a registry that's kept with the Department of Public Safety, and you're going to be on that registry until you pay your money back. So you've got an incentive to go pay your money back right there, and it's also going to help, say one municipality or one school board they can go right to this registry and look and say, this person's not trustworthy with our money. We don't need to hire them. And the bill, in fact, restricts them from working in any office of accountancy or a registrar's office or treasury office. So it basically puts these folks on a list, gets them to pay their money back if they want to come off the list, and it gives our other municipalities and everybody a fair warning that, look, these folks have stolen from the state taxpayers or the ratepayers before. Be on the lookout for them.
Now, I was under the impression that was still the case in some cases where, if you're found and you're convicted of embezzlement, you can't do that anymore. You can't work there.
Well, look, there's a lot of easy ways around that. And look, criminal justice reform is very important in this state. It's important to me. But every time we talk about ban the box legislation and not checking back on things like that, I do think that the Mississippi taxpayers and ratepayers are owed this extra level of protection of knowing that if somebody's stolen before and proven themselves not trustworthy around our money, we're going to hold them accountable until they pay it back.
I think that's reasonable.
I think it's reasonable.
I would hazard a guess that State Auditor Shad White loves that bill.
I've talked with him a good bit about it. I think that, look, he's doing a great job making sure that, look, our taxes go up the more people steal, right? Because we've got to replace funds. So, and he's doing a great job getting out there and finding the folks that are misusing our money.
It seems like every day he's got another announcement that he makes of somebody else that he caught.
That's right, and I imagine there are people in Mississippi that are shaking in their boots, watching him do this. And you know what? If you're stealing from the people of Mississippi, you ought to be shaking in your boots, and you ought to know that somebody like Shad White, your name might be on somebody's desk in his office building right now, and be ready.
Look over your shoulder.
That's right. That's right. Don't steal from the. Look, thievery is one of the worst things. I can't stand it. I certainly can't stand it when you're stealing from the hardworking people of Mississippi.
Anything else?
Look, that's one of my most important ones. But we've got a lot that we're looking at. We've got a bill right now that I know Senator Nicole Boyd is working really hard on that would allow people to make donations to help public schools and to help other entities with children with special needs to help their education. And we're trying to get that, and it'll be a tax. You would get a tax incentive to do so. So there's a lot of good things on that end that we're working on too. So we're doing some good things up here.
Senator Jeremy England, who is not on the Public Service Commission,
Right?
You have a much better connection than the commissioner did earlier. We had a bad phone connection, so yeah, this is very clear.
I like coming into the studio and talking. It just works out better.
Enjoyed it. Good luck on House Bill 833. Keep us updated. Let us know how this sorts out and if there is some middle ground that you guys can find.
I sure will, and I'll say here at the end, I'm very proud to serve, proud to be here.
I think everybody should be proud to have you.
Thank you, Dave.
Senator Jeremy England, we will continue in the Element Wealth Studios here on SuperTalk Mississippi next.